G'day, May 40 here, riding the Trump euphoria into another live stream. I'm just enjoying the heck out of this Donald Trump moment, right? The guy seems to be filled with so much energy. There's just so much news going on, and it may end in tears, right? It may be an absolute disaster, and I'm not locked into supporting Donald Trump through thick and thin. I'm just enjoying the moment. So should one withhold oneself from enjoying the moment? Should you step back from feelings of giddiness and euphoria? As long as your feelings of giddiness and euphoria are not allowing you or not encouraging you or not driving you to do self-destructive things, then let them ride. Let them free. All right? If you're feeling giddy, if you're feeling euphoric, all right, just let the good times roll. So I read a long New York Times Sunday magazine piece on the Murdochs, and I don't think it matters if Fox News goes centrist or even goes left, because the audience decides what goes on Fox News. After Donald Trump lost the 2020 election, the audience just moved away. They moved to Newsmax, they moved to One American News, they moved to all these different outlets that said that the election had been stolen. And so to regain their audience, like, Fox went right into the gutter to try to show more sympathy for those who said that the audience was stolen. And as a result, they then had to pay Dominion Voting Systems $787 million. So if Fox News goes to the center, people just abandon it for another news network. Newsmax will grow, One American News will grow, something else will grow to fill its place. So Fox News is primarily produced by its audience, right? The Fox News audience, right? They demand a right-wing, fun perspective on the world, and if Fox News doesn't give that to them, they'll just go somewhere else. So have no fear, right? Even if Fox News goes left, goes to the center, all right, there'll be some other outlet that's just going to jump up and provide the fun right-wing populist perspective on things for which there's an enormous audience. And the audience is increasingly moving online. Right? The average age of cable news viewers is like 68, 70
but
years of age.
But it's building. And, you know, they go up and they talk to some of the people about certain deals, and the people get all tongue-tied. They can't talk because these people get it. They're very smart people. We need smart people.
We do need smart people, and one of the smartest, Elon Musk, had a point to make about how important it is for Republicans to keep winning.
I think we do need to delete entire agencies as opposed to leave part of them behind. If you don't remove the roots of the weed, then it's easy for the weed to grow back.
As a gardener, I understand that. Joining me now, Chris Bedford, author of the Beltway Brief. Chris, this is such a breakneck speed they're going at, but I sense people are really loving it. Sorry for the derangement syndrome, folks, but people are really enjoying this.
It's like a fever dream to see this. I never in my wildest dreams imagined that this wish list would be coming true one after another. I mean, just a month or two ago, I was rolling my eyes at Republicans talking about defunding the Department of Education. D.C.'s never going to let that happen. They aren't going to do that. And not only are they doing it, and not only are the people approving of it, Democrats are fighting for things that are very unpopular, but this whole thing is happening, and it's revealing just how much of this is actually left-wing grant-giving programs. They're not actually educating people. They're not actually producing energy for the American worker, the American economy. These are grant-giving organizations that spread corruption, and it turns out this whole machine that just a year ago seemed almost impossible to beat was fake and was funded by the American taxpayer.
And we were teaching our kids to hate America, and we were paying for it.
Yes,
through all these
exactly.
NGOs and all these grants and all this nonsense. By the way, there was a moment today with the Indian leader, Modi was in town late today, and there was a little fun had. Watch.
Borrowing an expression from America, our vision for a developed India is to make India great again, or MEGA. When it's MAGA plus MEGA, it becomes mega. a mega partnership for prosperity.
Whatever. But I mean, it's funny. But look, India is a force to be reckoned with. But we have those situations with those Indian recruitment firms that are like, have post office boxes in the United States, and they bring in all these foreign workers. And that's something that you and I have talked about and both written about a lot. We'll see where that all goes.
It is. It's going to be a difficult thing when India talks about how they're going to help out with the small amount of illegal immigrants in the United States.
On social media, a lot of
unelected billionaire can waltz into our agencies and slash and burn the whole thing to the ground like a Taliban terrorist.
Doge radicalizing Democrats.
Who the hell voted for big balls?
I've gotten up every morning on my knees and prayed that God would put me in a position where I can end the childhood chronic disease epidemic. God sent me President Trump.
The MAGA Avengers are ready for action.
Congratulations.
Boy, do the Giants feel like the Democratic Party. Everything that they are doing could not work out. They better clean their up.
Someone didn't get the memo. Plus,
happy Valentine's Day to all the beautiful ladies in America.
there's been a break-in at the IRS. Doge just kicked in the door and ordered executives to put their hands where they can see them. There was an ultimatum. We can do this the easy way or the hard way.
Doge workers arrived today. Gavin Klager and others arrived today at the IRS. Do you expect to close the IRS, or what are you expecting?
No, I don't expect it, but I think that the Internal Revenue Service will be looked at like everybody else. Just about everybody's going to be looked at. So it's they're doing a hell of a job. It's an amazing job they're doing. And you know, that force is building. I call it the force of super geniuses, but it's building. And you know, they go up and they talk to some of the people about certain deals, and the people get all tongue-tied. They can't talk because these people get it. They're very smart people. We need smart people.
Big Balls is making bureaucrats tongue-tied. What's this contract for? Terminated. Next up is NASA. Elon's nerd army is reviewing their spending. I have a feeling we're going to find NASA isn't all about outer space. If agencies can't justify their headcount, Musk's planning on slashing every department by 30 to 40%. If Doge finds an unused federal building, they're going to sell it and put the profits in the piggy bank. Trump has his eyes on 14,000 vacant federal buildings. So if you want to live in an 80,000 square foot estate at the foot of the Potomac that's been collecting cobwebs for 6 decades, put in a bid. The government has more money than it knows what to do with. We just found out we're funding Palestinian hip-hop.
I uncovered over $3 million to a rap artist in Gaza producing anti-Israel, anti-Semitic songs. Is that the best use of American taxpayer dollars? I would venture not.
And here's who got the money.
Mama, Gaza's getting bombed, but nobody's saying it. I'm kinda getting scared now, but nobody's getting it. See, they terrorize my days, but say that I'm the terrorist. How can I be the terrorist? Do you know a terrorist? Cause all my life I've been terrorized, so I can't be the terrorist. But sometimes I wish I was aborted, ripped out of my mother's wombs. I know I'm sick and I'm morbid, but they cannibals, they animals, they grilling our organs. Auschwitz reincarnated, brought back to life by the victims that were burned by the Nazi life.
We sent $3 million to Kanye West Bank, his organization. We're paying Palestinians to rap about the bombs we sold Bibi. American taxpayers are like bookies. We're on both sides of every deal. We spent $20 billion to freak out a bunch of pets.
Injecting puppies with cocaine, staging hamster fight clubs, putting dead turtles on treadmills. Cats have marbles shoved up their rectums and are electroshocked to make them defecate in constipation experiments. Examine the effects of party drugs on animals injected with testosterone.
Who are we buying the cocaine from? I can get a gram from Gutfeld and give it to Rookie. Why does that cost so much? I can find a dead turtle in a pond, throw it on a treadmill, hit start, watch it keel over. That's free. A hamster fight club? Did they hire Joe Rogan to announce the fight? $20 billion is what Trump asked Congress for to build the border wall. We did this instead. We're also learning through the New York Post, the Department of Health and Human Services wasted $22 billion buying migrants cars and homes and giving them seed money to start businesses. Now Jose has a Cadillac, a bungalow, a side hustle, and a credit score of 740. Did we buy cars and homes for folks in North Carolina after Helene?
Okay, there is a terrific show on Paramount Plus made by Taylor Sheridan. Right, and this is the Wall Street Journal. Taylor Sheridan's Landman hits pay dirt with its Oilman hero. Paramount Plus drama conveys the modern necessity of fossil fuels like nothing else on TV. And I'm not Mr. Fossil Fuels. I don't talk about fossil fuels. I hardly talk about climate change. I have no expertise in this area. But I am tired of entertainment programs relentlessly preaching to me about climate change. It's nice to get the other point of view at times. And Taylor Sheridan just has a way of working these riffs that are quite edgy into his show. So it's a 10-episode first season, and it's just so much fun. Right? It stars Billy Bob Thornton and John Hamm. Taylor Sheridan's other hits include Yellowstone, the spin-offs 1883 and 1923. And Landman is based on the podcast Boomtown. And it's a detailed, unapologetic tribute to the tenacity, courage, dedication of the people who work in the oil business. The work is so dangerous we observe 3 men get blown to pieces while doing some routine maintenance on a pump jack above an oil well. And Billy Bob Thornton plays Tommy Norris, a manager, a landman who roams across Texas on behalf of his CEO boss, John Hamm. Tommy is so tough and pragmatic that after he accidentally smashes his own hand with a hammer, he cuts the tip off his pinky with a scalpel rather than endure surgery and recovery. His work won't wait. He sounds like Roddy Lott. And Taylor Sheridan's dialogue might sound like a sermon, but it's just, the show's so exciting that you don't feel bad that you're hearing a sermon, right? His instincts to sympathize with the oil industry is so contrary to the current cultural currents that he turns Tommy into an amusing rebuttal of everything bi-coastal elites believe. When a waitress says, "We're having a special on Bud Light," he replies, "I bet you are. Is oil the thing that's going to kill us all?" as his liberal, young, big city lawyer Rebecca puts it. On the contrary, it is our lifeblood, he says. Petroleum products not only fuel our lives, they're in that road we came in on. The wheels on every car made, including yours. It's in tennis rackets and lipstick and refrigerators and antihistamines, pretty much anything plastic, you name it. He says, good and bad don't factor into this, Rebecca. So that may be one of the advantages of this show, right? There are occasions where we don't think in terms of good and bad. We just talk about reality. Then there are other times where we talk about good and bad, where it's not talked about much, right? You want to come with a different perspective if you're doing a show. So most of the time when we talk about international relations, we don't talk a great deal about good and bad, because you get some insights when you look at the same picture that everyone else is looking at, but you take away a certain filter that is usually used, the morality filter, and sometimes you more clearly discern reality. So good and bad don't factor into this, all right? Sometimes you see things more clearly when you remove good and bad. Other times you'll see things more clearly. It's important to add in the filter of good and bad, right? There's a Hasidic story about 19th century Hasidic story. A Hasidic Rebbe is asked by his students. First of all, the Rebbe tells his students that for everything there is a purpose under heaven. And the students say, even atheism? And the Rebbe says, yes, when you see a needy member of your community, you should go help him as though there were no God in heaven to help him out. So you'll get a lot of sharp insights when you take on an atheist perspective on life, right? I'm not saying go around with an atheist perspective all the time, but sometimes, right, take off your religious yarmulke and see things as an atheist would. Then other times, see things as a Muslim would. Try seeing things as an Orthodox Jew would. Try seeing things as an Orthodox Christian would. Like, put on these different perspectives and a little bit of effort, right? You can learn to empathize with pretty much anyone. I want to see Elliot Blatt doing his best Lumbergh impression as he takes copious amounts of red ink to DEI offices at all Fortune 500 companies. Okay, back to Wall Street Journal here. Right, the world runs on this stuff, oil, until it starts running on something else. We got to feed it, or the world stops. So the typical cliches that apply to representations of oil executives as heartless, greedy, environmental despoilers do not come up in Landman. So demonizing those who provide a substance that everybody uses every day makes no sense, right? There ain't nobody to blame but the demand that we keep pumping it. Landman salutes everyone from the worm, the low man on a crew, up to the billionaire boss who puts it all on the line for a punishingly hard business. Nobody works the oil patch out of altruism. We're told that a felon with an 8th grade education can earn $200,000 a year as a roughneck. But the doctors and the lawyers are well paid too, as they deliver healing and justice. Oilmen give us something just as vital, the cheap, abundant energy that is a principal reason why Americans are so much wealthier than the citizens of other large advanced economies, right? American energy in the United States is consistently 50% or cheaper compared to the cost of energy in pretty much every other advanced economy. So Tommy, the Landman, says, there is an alternative. You can throw your phone away. You can trade that Mercedes for a bike or a horse. You can start hunting for your own food, but you will be the only one, and it won't make a damn bit of difference. And I hear the moral high ground gets real windy at night. Check out Landman. Check out anything by Taylor Sheridan.
And Biden's EPA couldn't get the money out the door fast enough.
An extremely disturbing video circulated 2 months ago featuring a Biden EPA political appointee talking about how they were tossing gold bars off the Titanic, rushing to get billions of your tax dollars out the door before Inauguration Day. The gold bars were tax dollars, and tossing them off the Titanic meant the Biden administration knew they were wasting it.
Right before Christmas, Biden's EPA gave the Climate United Fund $7 billion. This climate fund looks like a slush fund to funnel cash to Joe's donors for pet projects. We looked to see who ran the fund and went to the board of directors page. They scrubbed it. It's all gone. They took the money and ran. That's why Trump calls it the Green New Scam. Doge is saving over $1 billion a day chasing this trash down, and Democrats are acting like they're getting carpet bombed.
What does that mean when an unelected billionaire can waltz into our agencies and slash and burn the whole thing to the ground like a Taliban terrorist?
Only a Democrat thinks defunding cocaine puppies is terrorism. Bill Clinton fired almost 400,000 federal bureaucrats.
All right, times, extraordinary times like these call for Carl Schmitt quotes. He was a German political theorist and legal thinker. So here is Carl Schmitt on humanity. Concept of humanity is a useful ideological instrument of imperialist expansion. In its ethical humanitarian form, it is a specific vehicle of economic imperialism. Whoever invokes humanity wants to cheat you. To confiscate the word humanity, to invoke and monopolize such a term, has incalculable effects, such as denying the enemy the quality of being human, declaring him to be an outlaw of humanity, and a war therefore can be driven to the most extreme inhumanity. And then Carl Schmitt, he did his best work in the 1920s and early 1930s. Every actual democracy rests on the principle that not only are equals equal, but unequals will not be treated equally. Democracy requires, first, homogeneity, and second, if the need arises, the elimination or eradication of heterogeneity. Oh gosh, disavow. Carl Schmitt, tell me who your enemy is, I will tell you who you are. Carl Schmitt published in the 1920s a book called Political Theology, 4 chapters on the concept of sovereignty. So he says, all significant concepts of the modern theory of the state are secularized theological concepts, not only because of their historical development, so they're transferred from theology to the theory of the state. So the omnipotent God became the omnipotent lawgiver, but also because of this systematic structure, the recognition of which is necessary for a social consideration. So the exception in jurisprudence is analogous to the miracle in theology. So only by being aware of this analogy can we appreciate the philosophical ideas of the state in the last centuries. So for Schmitt, the exception is far more interesting than the rule. The rule proves nothing. The exception proves everything. In the exception, the power of real life breaks through the crust of a mechanism that's become torpid by repetition. So right now, we are in a state of exception. The normal rules do not seem to apply. The specific political distinction to which political actions and motives can be reduced is that between friend and enemy. And perhaps Carl Schmitt's most famous book is called The Concept of the Political. The concept of progress, right, improvement, completion, rationalization became dominant in the 18th century in an age of humanitarian moral belief, in the age of the Enlightenment. So progress meant progress in culture, self-determination, education, moral perfection. In the age of economic thinking, right, progress is economic. In the age of humanitarian moral progress, right, it is a byproduct of economic progress. So when one domain of thought becomes central, so for example, nationalism has become the central political force in the world since at least the 19th century, then the problems of other domains are solved in terms of the central domain. They are considered secondary problems. So up until about the 15th century, religion seemed to be the most powerful force in the world. From the 16th century on, you had the growing power of secularism, the growing power of the state, the growing power of nationalism. So who is the enemy? He need not be evil. He need not be ugly. He need not be an economic competitor. All right. He is the other, the stranger. He is the stranger who threatens your people's existence. That's the enemy. Might be a great guy, but if he threatens your people's existence, he is the enemy.
No one called him a terrorist. We called him Slick Willie. And Trump and Elon are offering very generous buyouts. 75,000 workers have already took him up on it. The retirement cave hostages are working 24/7 processing all this paperwork. Trump's doing exactly what Obama wished he did.
One of the commitments that I made to the American people was that we would do a better job here in Washington in rooting out wasteful spending. We don't need to wait for Congress in order to do something about wasteful spending that's out there. Cutting waste, making government more efficient is something that leaders in both parties have worked on. We haven't seen as much action out of Congress as we'd like, and that's why we launched on our own initiative the campaign to cut waste.
So Obama said he didn't need to wait for Congress to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. That's funny. The New York Times has always covered government waste under Obama, Clinton, Bush, everybody. Yesterday, the Times reported the federal government loses between $233 to $521 billion a year to fraud. And in the same week.
So it's pouring rain outside. We had the driest rain year basically to date, and now it's just raining. We barely need it, and just makes me so happy. There's something about being inside, being warm, being happy, doing what you love, and watching much needed, badly needed rain just pouring down all around us. Like, too much winning. Am I even worthy of this much winning? It's just so much fun right now. So let's bring Kip back onto the show. Kip, what's going on, man?
Hey, man, I appreciate you putting on a part two for us tonight.
Thank you.
You were feeling the spirit, amen?
Amen, brother. I feel the spirit.
Just kind of venturing back to what David was saying earlier today. With regrets, you know, he was saying he thought y'all shared some mutual regrets. Not being fathers, I think that was one. And maybe number two was not being more, I don't know, highly regarded, more widely known, etc.
More successful, more high status, more affluent, more married, more with children.
There's a lot of, you know, the part of on the social media, there's a lot of ways to put a barometer to that. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So maybe I could see that, but quality, there's something to be said about quality instead of quantity. Some of the people maybe he was describing today have gone beyond the level of being able to have an intimate setting, you know, like you do with David, myself, Elliot, whoever, you know, Glib, whoever. So what do you say, quality versus quantity when it comes to that?
Right. So many people want big success, and then a few people get to experience big success, and they wish that they never had. Right. Not everyone's cut out for fame. Not everyone's cut out for success. Right. Many people are only alive right now because they never made it, because they never had spare dollars to waste with drugs and hookers. So there are advantages to success, but there are also advantages to having some privacy, to being small time. And so if I were more successful, if I had more viewers, there'd be more scrutiny, there'd be more pushback, right? There would be, all sorts of negative repercussions. Right now, to the best of my knowledge, my live streams have no negative effects on my life. So if I were bigger, right, the negative effects on my life would also be bigger.
Mm-hmm. And just, David, who was it he mentioned? He mentioned Mr. Benz today.
Yeah,
right?
Mike Benz, yeah.
But
who was a regular on my show back in 2018. Like, had him on probably 6 times.
Right, but also you crossed orbits with Mr. Fuentes as well, right?
Yes, Fuentes is on my show, yeah.
And also Mr. Daryl Cooper, who got popular here 3 or 4 months ago, and then just went away.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever had Daryl Cooper on my show, but had Baked Alaska on multiple times. Yeah, I've had some reasonably big names, but
Stephen,
so
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, do you think I'm lying, or do you think I'm self-deceived when I say regret and resentment don't play a major role in my life? They pop up at times, but
no.
They're not a big deal for me.
No, I think people like me, David, whoever that maybe view you from afar, there must be more to this. I can't see this narcissistic side of you. You know what I mean? To me, it's not that. It's more the impulse to blog. And maybe one bleeds into the other. Am I wrong? You don't speak to that. What's the deal there?
Yeah. So I remember some academic told me that trying to put a lot of your life online, I'm trying to like put a definitive collection online. It's a conservative impulse because you want to conserve and create and build and protect a certain something. I've forgotten the exact argument, but I certainly like to have my say on things. I like to write, and I like to speak, and I like to talk to other people, and I like to bounce ideas off people, and I like to think out loud and think socially. So as one newspaper editor told me, 40, you were born to blog, bro.
Yeah, and it's a rare time. There was a time where people kept diaries, and I think we've really lost something by going away from that. But at the end of the day, even if it was just you, and I know it's not just you, but even if it was just you, there's a record there of where your thinking was, and if it benefits nobody else, and I know it does benefit other people, it benefits you. You get what I'm saying, 40?
Yeah.
It benefits you. There's value there. What do you say about what we've lost when we stopped doing the whole diary thing? And now, wouldn't it be a great thing if we could get our hands on a collection of diaries from 200, 300, 400 years ago, just to know what their daily grind was juxtaposed to what ours is? Don't you think we've lost something there?
Yeah, I like what Dennis Prager says, that when you write down your thoughts, it's a mirror to your mind. And so just like a normal person should look in the mirror before they leave the house, writing provides a mirror to your mind. So it makes you more clear. So tracking how you spend your time, tracking how you spend your money, tracking how much money you make, anything that you tracking what you eat, all right, will provide you with more clarity. And a whole bunch of dysfunctions are primarily a product of vagueness. And when you track things and you write things down, it removes you from the world of the vague.
I'm trying to remember. I'm big friends, freedom, constant reflection, and the last thing is meaningful and measurable goals. And I'm trying to remember if you told me you were anti-goals or you were just anti.
I'm not big on goals. Like I'm not anti, but I'm not pro goals in the way that many people are, because goals tend to narrow your focus, and they tempt you into cheating, to making shortcuts, and so there are some benefits, but they're mild. Some people, some of the time, right, a goal will be great, but I don't think goals are among the most important things that a person can develop.
So maybe you're one of the rare people that can appreciate the way I phrase that. Meaningful and measurable goals. You get what I'm saying? The first three, friends, freedom, constant reflection, they just roll right off the tongue. But on the last one, instead of just saying goals, I qualified it, meaningful and measurable goals, because otherwise it can just be hyperbolic bullshit. You know what I mean? You gotta, you get into it, you get out of it what you put into it, so to speak. But when I was
wait, I want to challenge that. So there are problems. So let's say a person has a goal of earning at least $10,000 a month. If he damages relations with his family, with his friends, if he damages his health, if he makes ethical shortcuts and then gets exposed, convicted, prosecuted, sued, right? There are all sorts of downsides to being focused on a particular goal of how much money you want to make a month. Now, you can add some provisos, providing it is legal, and providing that I'm not doing anything I'd be ashamed of if it were published on the front page of the New York Times. That's a little better, but that still is not going to prevent you from possibly damaging your health and damaging other things which may well turn out to be much more valuable than earning $12,000 in a month, right? If you earn $12,000 in a month, but you do $5 million worth of damage to yourself, that's a losing proposition. And then other people, they set a goal, I want to run 5 miles a day. But many people, as they start jogging, they injure themselves, right? They do all sorts of damage to themselves, often permanent damage, and their sense of manhood and their sense of self is so invested in running that they are running to their own destruction, right? They are just damaging themselves, and they're all wrapped up in their running, and they go to a race, and then they get a participation trophy, and they wear it at work the next day, right? Again, it's just a terrible idea. Or people go to yoga. Well, guess what? Most people in the West, probably over the age of 30, should not do yoga, right? Because they are highly likely to do tremendous amounts of damage to yourself. It takes an extraordinary person to go into a yoga class and not feel social pressure to keep up. And in the pressure to keep up, you are highly likely to do significant, irreparable damage to yourself. And let's say a person sets a goal of lifting 200 pounds, and in the process they develop all sorts of bad habits because they're trying to take a shortcut to lift this certain amount of weight. Or other people set a goal to read a book a week, but they start skimming, or they choose shorter books, or there will just be all these temptations to cheat so that they can announce that they've read a book a week. So the quality of how you do things is frequently far more important than the end result of what you're trying to reach.
Yeah, let me tell you what a strange bird I am. From like 2009 to like 2015 when I had a car wreck, I was in triathlete shape. I mean, ultra shape, in such good a shape that when I sat in a wooden chair, that had a wooden chair back, my bones would hit that wood because there was just like hardly any fat on me whatsoever. So anyway, I would keep telling myself, you're a triathlete. But then I'd say, well, really, you're not really, because you're not signing up for anything. And then I would think about that stuff as I was running every morning, and I'd say, well, what does it matter if I pay do I become a triathlete the moment when I pay the $75 registration fee? Does it happen the moment when I don the shirt, that they gave me for paying the registration fee? At what point? Every day I'm running 3 miles in 21 minutes, and every day I'm swimming a mile, and every Saturday I'm going out and biking for 30 miles. So who needs the fucking trophy? You get what I'm saying, Luke? What's the
and
point?
also, at what cost? I mean, what other opportunities in life did you miss out on doing that? I participated in my one and only triathlon at age 18, and I finished dead last, and I was last for virtually the entire race. There was an ambulance kind of just rolling behind me. Just absolute humiliation, and it was probably good for me to experience that kind of humiliation. And all sorts of people get injuries, irreparable injuries, or they ignore family, friends, other commitments such as to work, to community, to volunteer for achieving these athletic feats, and then they get sad because as they age, right, they can't do it as quickly or as well as they used to. So I'm not terribly invested in the number of pull-ups I can do. I can do 4 pull-ups with some cheating, so I have to kind of lift my knees up, and doesn't really matter. My sense of self does not depend on the number of pull-ups I can do or how fast I can do a half marathon or a marathon. So yeah, for some people, like taking up archery, all right, a wonderful, wonderful pursuit. But if you take up archery at the cost of your relationship with your kids, or you accidentally hit someone with an arrow and they successfully sue you and take your home, the archery wasn't such a great idea.
Well, yeah, the net of that is you're paying. Yeah. And a lot of people don't factor that in. But back to the Luke Ford soup, because I like the idea. I like the idea of the way you being under the hot seat or whatever. But I got no real prescriptions. I was just kind of thinking about like what I think of when I think of the Luke Ford soup. And one thing I think of is the fact that you didn't have a mom. And I don't know how good or bad the pseudo moms that tried to play mom. And I just wonder, just as someone that's listened to you for 7 or 8 months, did you ever like see any interaction with any other kids and you'd be like, I wish that was my mom. That right there is a good mom. I could use a mom like that.
Yeah, pretty much every home that I entered, got to know and liked, I would wish, oh, why can't I live here? But then I would think about all the advantages of being Desmond Ford's son. So my father was a big deal in my insular community, and so it was really cool being Desmond Ford's son. And so, yeah, on the one hand, there are many other homes that I wished would adopt me, but then it was really cool being Desmond Ford's son. So I would kind of go back and forth.
The price you paid.
Yeah.
But I sent you a couple of days ago that 2-minute video from somebody, and when he described his mother as ice, I was like, damn, that is cold-blooded. And then I kind of got to thinking, well, how does that come? I mean, a guy saying his mother's ice, shoo, that's awful. But how does that how's that compared to 40, which I imagine your only recollections from your mom is you trying to place together something in your mind, something aunts or uncles or somebody told you along the way. You get what I'm saying? She didn't make any impressions on you for real. They're just trying to tell you stuff and try to make an impression that you didn't originally have yourself. Am I right or wrong? What's going on?
Well, she wrote a book, and so I got my hands on the book about 10, 15 years. It was a book for kids, but I read it trying to find a message in it for me. And a lot of people knew her, so I was still meaning 13 years ago, I ran into a woman who was one of my mother's nurses. And so not just family, but people out that I'm not related to who cared for her or who knew my mother, right? I'll still encounter them.
And I'll tell you, I just juxtapose what you were saying, like to my own situation. And I don't care if they were rich or whatever. I can't remember not one time ever thinking, I wish that was my mom or I wish that was my dad. I can honestly say that maybe they were so stinking rich, that maybe I wish my family had their setup. But that's a different thing, isn't it, Luke Ford? That's a different thing. You saw the warmth of the mother, and you was like, damn, why can't I live here? Why can't I feel that 7 days a week? Why can't I see what her meatloaf's all about, her spaghetti, etc.? So,
well, yeah, there were homes that were warm, and I thought, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, and even you know, it seems gross now, but I'm sure every once in a while you'd run into a friend whose mom was a smother mother or something. You'd be like, damn, she just really loves that motherfucker, you know. And here you was taking interviews. What'd you say? You had like 4 people trying to play mom between the age of 3 and 7 or 3 and 10. What was the whole thing?
Yeah, I had a lot of different lot of different people who played mother figures, but as I grew up, I mean, virtual father figures became far more important to me. So I would constantly develop different father figures, and I virtually never had some desire to like develop, you know, virtual mother figures.
Fuck, you had to share Desmond with all of fucking Australia, am I right?
Yeah, it sure felt that way, but after about the age of 11, I didn't particularly want to be close to Desmond, so I sought out substitute father figures.
Right. Well, I noticed that when you were fumbling around and you couldn't you couldn't remember what Mr. Tutu's first name was.
Desmond,
like,
yes.
Damn. I was like, damn. You know, maybe that means nothing, but maybe that means something, you know, because my mind goes back to young Luke the Firebug, too. And I'm like, damn, there's things there that he doesn't give away the whole damn shebang. But if you just can remember from one episode to the next, there's a puzzle there. There's a whole little Luke Ford puzzle there going on, little Firebug Luke. Somebody better show me some fucking attention or the whole place is going to burn, I tell you.
I remember, yeah, there are a couple of books that were helpful called The Father Factor and The Mother Factor. So your father often becomes the template through which you approach financial issues, career, work, authority, right? And so I had this knee-jerk resentment and rebellion against authority due to my largely unexpressed rebellion towards my father. And so that significantly warped my life into my 50s. And then my lack of a relationship with my mother meant I had some pretty messed up relationships with women over the years.
Yeah, I imagine. I don't know. Did you? What was your model? I mean, what ultimately was it? Stuff you saw on the 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock TV shows, or what was your model for how the hell everybody else was living or whatever? Because you weren't in these houses; you were just seeing glimpses.
No, sometimes I would stay with friends for months at a time, and so right, I saw I saw some happy, happy families, happy marriages.
Right.
I had some, I had some good role models, and when I'd get adopted into these other families, it would kind of calm me down, and I would do less acting out. I felt more at ease, and yeah, I just calmed down, and I was a lot easier to be around.
You weren't like. I get this image of a foster kid. It was something better than that. Tell me.
Well, I was in foster care until 4.5, and then my dad remarried. We went off to England, but my dad always put his career first, and my stepmother had her own challenges, so I would largely retreat to a world of books and a world of fantasy to comfort myself.
You realize, had you been born a little bit later, your parents would have been Desmond would have been treating you like a BFF, because that's what the norm is. But he was part of the silent generation where they were seen and not heard. You know what I mean? He may have raised you the way he had been raised. So, I don't know. It's the way that some people have no leaving a dog out in the cold, 20-degree in bad weather, because that's what they saw. You know what I mean? So
yeah, my dad didn't set out to be a bad father. Now, neither my brother or I had really any kind of relationship with him, but my sister had a great relationship with him, and that's not uncommon. Often fathers have great relationships with their daughters, and sons often have great relationships with their mothers. But my dad was born in 1929. He came from a pretty messed up family himself. I think I gave up trying to relate to my father around age 24. There was one incident, was the last time that I tried to reestablish a bond with my father. So I was visited by a woman who was highly accomplished academic, married to a friend, and I was living with my parents. I was still ill with chronic fatigue syndrome, and she came to visit me. And then after we talked for a while, I said, oh, why don't we go out back and say hello to my father? And so I bring her out back to say hello to my dad, and he immediately gets stuck into some debate about evolution with her. And she was a very traditional Seventh-day Adventist. She didn't believe in evolution, and she just end up fleeing the house. And so I said to my dad, please don't start debates with my friends. And he responded, fine, I just won't talk to them. So any kind of reproach, and he would just react by, fine, I just won't talk to them. And I think I tried.
He was a clam, wasn't he?
Well, to me, I mean, he'd open up to other people. But when I found out about some things that he was struggling with, I said to him, why don't you tell me about these things? Why don't you be more open, and then I'll be more open with you? And he says, oh, I wouldn't want to worry you. But when someone opens up to me, it wouldn't worry me. Like Kip, if you told me that you had terminal cancer and you were going to die in 3 months, it wouldn't diminish my sleep tonight. Like I'd feel bad, but my life would go on. And so when people share their troubles with me, it's not a burden. But my father would feel burdened by people's troubles. So his attitude was keep a stiff upper lip, but then it would just bleed out. And so he'd be trying to keep a stiff upper lip. But when you do things that are unnatural, then the manipulation to get sympathy and attention just becomes obnoxious. So I'm thinking about Dallas Cowboys coach Tom Landry. He was very self-effacing, but he would always install these trick plays because in the playoffs, because he wanted to show how smart he was. So for Chuck Noll, the goal of playing football was to win the Super Bowl, but for Tom Landry, he was distracted by trying to show how smart he was because he couldn't admit his own natural, normal human desires for attention and for praise. So he was so damn self-effacing, but it would spill out in the most manipulative and self-destructive ways. And so I'm thinking about the great Super Bowl the Cowboys played against the Steelers in January '79. The Cowboys were just driving the ball down the field on the opening after the opening kickoff, and they were just running the ball right down the Steelers' gut. And then bloody Tom Landry sends in a triple reverse. The ball gets fumbled. Pittsburgh recovers and drives down for the opening touchdown, and the Cowboys never get their running game going again. And so if he had only not had that need to show how smart he was, right, the Cowboys would have been onto a winning formula, but he would sabotage the success of the Cowboys out of his desperate need to show everyone that he was brilliant.
Yeah, you try that triple reverse shit today, the damn cornerback be sitting there smoking a damn blunt, have it half smoked by the time you get that triple reverse worked out, and he'd have you 15 yards in the backfield. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, you're right on that. What else did I have on my little list? Oh, beef capsule pills. Now, that is something. I ain't here to tear at you, but I don't know. Part of me says, God, that's got to be some of that's got to be psychosomatic. Or let me just say, that's saying too much. Now I'm saying you're lying. Let's just say I just can't relate to that. Isn't that a fair way to say that? I could just not relate to that.
Probably.
But is there any way that you can help somebody like myself that can't? And I'm saying that as somebody that's been crippled for the past 4 weeks. You know?
Yeah. So just I'm so sorry, man. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight now that I realize that you've been crippled the past few weeks, bro. I feel terrible. I feel so burdened right now. Like my whole universe is just crashing down under the burden of your pain and suffering. My God, I wish I could have been more sensitive and helpful for your needs. So yeah, here's an illustration. Millions of Americans aren't able to properly metabolize vitamin B12, and it's the primary reason for their extreme levels of fatigue and mental fog. And when they find some solution to that, the problem goes away. But for millions of Americans, it's not treated. They don't understand what's happening. So it's really hard to metabolize vitamin B12. You can swallow B complex. You can swallow vitamin B12 pills. You can get vitamin B injections. But it's really hard to metabolize for some reason when it is in beef organ form. All right, somehow then the body can assimilate it. But if you do research, millions of Americans aren't able to properly metabolize vitamin B12, and as a result, they have to soldier through enormous amounts of fatigue and brain fog. And it's not easy to meet that need.
Yeah, wasn't the old wives' tale that? Yeah, wasn't the old wives' tale that the whatever goodness was in the capsule was being peed out? You weren't really getting the goodness. Wasn't that the old wives' tale?
Yeah, and probably something to it. But, I mean, I don't know what it's like to eat beef, but most people tell me after a good steak, I mean, you feel strong. That it just feels great. A good Big Mac, a good steak. Right? Most people feel strong as a result of that. And unfortunately, I never got to experience that.
I would tell you as an acidic mystic type that at that time was keeping myself in kind of triathlete shape. Whenever I did have one of my little funsies that I like to indulge in was whenever the Publix had New York strips on sale for $4.99 a pound, I would grab like 2 packs of them, and I would eat like 1 steak for lunch and 1 steak for dinner. And I enjoyed the hell out of those steaks, but I will tell you, it felt like that meat took 3 times as much, 4 times as much time to go through my system and be processed. And ergo, I felt like, your body's a machine. And I felt like when I was eating steaks, particularly, that it took the machine more of the machine was devoted to the gut to do whatever role was being done there. So I actually sort of had the exact opposite at a point when I was really health conscious, you might want to say. So who knows? Different strokes for different folks on that.
Kip, I'm sorry to hear you've been crippled. Have you ever looked into the Alexander technique?
No, thank you. I was gonna mention that here in a minute, but yeah, you do sort of have you exposed yourself to have a sycophantic tendency with the whole Dennis Prager thing, and it was super cringy that you were giving tapes to friends. Hopefully you didn't end any friendships. Hopefully you did it at a time in your life where people weren't breaking friendships apart the way they did during Trump's first term. You get what I'm saying?
Well, it obviously came across as creepy and loserish, and so it wasn't a winning thing to do.
Right. Well, when you tell the story, what I see is somebody that's been hypnotized with a little peppermint lollipop eyes, spinning around in a circle, that you just weren't really in your mind, whatever. But whatever magic dust he had sprinkled on you, God, it must have been working. It must have been working. He probably wishes he could bottle whatever that formula was that was working on you and just do it 1,000,000 times over. Speaking of Mr. Prager, what's the latest? Is he talking again? Is he with us?
Yeah, supposedly he is talking. But if you're broken, all right, any intimations of something that will heal you will just change you and have a power over you that people who are not broken will never understand. So all sorts of people, for example, are socially awkward until they discover alcohol. And then they are able to dance and to be social and to enjoy themselves in social occasions, and their inhibitions fall away, and alcohol starts out as the solution. Other people feel fatigued and lackadaisical, and then they discover pornography, and then suddenly, the world comes alive. They are just transformed. Other people are just going through the motions, and they discover that Jesus Christ died on the cross to save them from eternally burning hellfire, and it just transfixes them. So if you're broken, like people are going to come along and offer you a way to heal yourself, and it's going to feel amazing. And if you're not broken, you won't understand how enticing the solution to brokenness feels. And so I've been searching for substitute father figures my entire life. Dennis Prager was just the ultimate father figure when I needed him most, like when my life had fallen apart, where I was bedridden, where I had very little hope, and by attaching myself to this man, virtually listening to him on the radio and corresponding with him and calling it his radio show, it gave me the strength to get through very difficult times. So some people form these parasocial relationships, or other people discover alcohol, or other people discover online shopping, or other people become religious. Yeah, when you're a broken person and someone throws a quilt of meaning over the universe, it's absolutely intoxicating. And a lot of people are incredibly vulnerable. And so someone comes along offering solutions like Jordan Peterson or Dennis Prager, and that they're tapping into that audience of broken people.
Jesus is very popular in prisons, and Jesus is very popular in foxholes when the live rounds are firing. Amen.
Yes. Amen.
Before we move forward, I was gonna say to tell you a little bit about myself. I don't think I've ever lasted on a job any longer than I did when I was with the Marines, and you feel like when you sign on the dotted line there, that you're sort of obligated, or otherwise I would have probably left that fucking deal, within the first 18 months or whatever. So I don't mean to come at you as somebody that's had these long lasting relationships, but I want to ask you, what was the theme as you were looking for all the could-be Mrs. 40s over these past 58 years? What was the theme? Was it generally you had enough of her, or she had enough of you?
So there were two types of women that I would date. One type of woman would be incredibly loyal and incredibly just a lovely, sweet, loving woman, but she would be undisciplined and lazy and messy, and I would end up leaving her. Then the other type of woman would be high achieving, and she would end up developing contempt for me, and she would leave me.
What were you doing to fall short of her bar of whatever a man is? What
well,
was the
until I went to Under Owners Anonymous, I never earned over $45,000 a year. So that's to begin with. Okay. So I often made a very good first impression, but it was once they got to know me that
they thought they had hooked a high value male.
Yeah.
And you weren't passing the smell test on level 2 or level 3 when they were shaking when they picked you up, turned you upside down, and shook your wallet. They're like, "What the fuck's going on here?"
So often their therapist would say, "You need to leave him," or their parents would say, "You need to leave him," or their friends would say, "You need to leave him."
Yeah, my second part of that question was going to be like, what was the theme? Not necessarily who was leaving who, but what was the theme? But I think you answered that too, didn't you? You sort of gave us enough there. Next thing I was going to ask you about was very cringy, the whole Alexander technique stuff on credit cards. That's super cringy too. You wanna like just confess to insanity at the time, or you want to?
No, it was, again, when you're broken and something comes. Most Alexander teachers discover the Alexander technique because they come from a place of great pain. So great psychic pain will often lead to great physical pain, and great physical pain will produce great psychic pain. So people with great pain will discover the Alexander technique and will discover that it relieves and releases their pain, and they will fall in love with it and decide to devote themselves to it. And that was true for me. Also, it came at a time when I didn't know what I was going to do. So I quit blogging on the pornography industry in October, November of 2007, and I was trying to figure out my way forward in life. And that's about the time I discovered the Alexander technique, and my teacher suggested, "Oh, why don't you become an Alexander technique teacher?" And so it helped me transition from one life where I was primarily earning my living through blogging to trying to figure out a new way to live. And so the Alexander Technique School would not actually take credit cards, so I would use my credit cards to pay for a lot of other expenses. And I would be so fatigued for the first year or so of the program, I couldn't do much else. But I knew that wherever I went, that this would be a good transition for me, and I was confident that even though I'd accumulate credit card debt, that I would pay it off, that I had the ability to get stuck into it and get rid of it. So I maxed out my credit cards to to write my first book, and then I published the book and paid off the credit card debt, and then I maxed out my credit cards to live while I was training for the Alexander Technique during a transitional period of my life. And yeah, it took a few years longer than I expected. I didn't understand under-earning at the time, but it was like it was a good thing. But often that which kills us is also that which sustains us. So think about an industrial town where it is a one industry town, and this one industry is simultaneously feeding and providing for the town and poisoning it through the release of chemicals that cause cancer, right? That's very common. That which sustains you is also going to kill you. And so some people will stumble on the Alexander Technique, and they'll have an exorbitant number of lessons, which typically costs about $100 a lesson. They'll go to Alexander Technique Training School. They'll fall in love with the technique. They'll devote themselves to teaching the technique. And before you know it, they might have run through $200,000 that, and then countless money of lost opportunities that they could have been earning. So simultaneously, it can be like the best thing that's ever happened to you and the worst thing. So I don't think that duality is unusual.
No. You hit the nail on the head. It came to you. Maybe you weren't grasping or clinging or clutching at that time, but you were looking for another avenue to go down. And by God, there was a lamppost all lit up for you and everything. So you just, that's the way you went. Yeah. The only thing that kind of seems to me sketchy, and I hope I'm not running off future business by saying this, but like that gal you had on maybe earlier today and maybe yesterday, she talks in a certain cadence that I remember it flashed something in my mind, but like 2012, maybe 2011, when I separated from a Facebook friend because he got sucked into something called Abraham Hicks. And I was like, man, can't you see that's just horse shit? And he was like, no, man, this woman is speaking to her husband from beyond the grave, and they're contacting, other people and stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? But the lady talked in that sort of a hypnotic cadence, the way that Alexander Technique lady talked about. So anyway, I'm the kind of guy where if you get sucked in by a cult or a multi-level marketing scheme, I know it makes me less of a person, but I will break off that friendship because I like view that person as, you should have known better. You should have known better, because the next step of the thing is you're going to come at me wanting me to sign up for that multi-level thing, or want me to sign up or drink the Kool-Aid or whatever. And so I don't know. And
I'm attracted to cults and to scams. And when I first moved to Los Angeles, I paid out about $10,000 for various acting and modeling scams because my ego was flattered at the idea that I could make a career as an actor and a model. So I probably got about $10,000 because I was willing to pay for my fantasy. And
you're paying for that love
delusion.
Bombing or whatever it is. Don't they call it love bombing or whatever before they isolate you from your friends, neighbors, and relatives?
Right.
So,
and people who buy programs on how to make money online, they're buying hope. And I was buying hope. I was buying fantasy. And also I remember in something like 1995, my friend convinced me to go to this pyramid party where you'd put in $100 and then supposedly like downstream from that you'd get it back. And I got talked in. I put in $100 and I didn't get it. Never got it back.
And the thing is, and you've helped remind me this, Tony Robbins and Benny Hinn, they are helping some of those poor bastards. I just hate that they're separating them from their money, and it's so easy, you know.
Yeah.
I used to, when I'd get up in the middle of the night to pee, I'd see some of these dumb infomercials, and I'm gonna be like, I was always like, are people that stupid? You know, should I produce one of these things? Because there was a time in my life that I was real salesy, and I'm telling you, Luke, there's a game within the game, and you can see it being played a lot on the overnight infomercials. But anyway, I'll move on to the next little thing out on my list.
Wait. So there was there was a New Yorker article about the world's greatest salesman, and I did a decoding of it. I'll see if I can find it. But okay.
I would definitely be interested.
Oh, how to build a better motivational speaker. The upstart motivator Jesse Itzler wants to reform his profession while also rising to the top. So I did a decoding on the world's greatest motivational speaker.
Yeah, it's hard to believe now as we rap, but as you and I sit together and rap. But you know, there was a time where I would sit together with groups of people like in New York State, you know, people who they ought to be slicker than me, and I would like teach them like simple things like the difference between a statement, a question, and an objection, and like how to handle the avenue of approach of each one. You know, you got to delineate which one and then go down. And I have forgotten most of that stuff, but it's I think back, and I mean, it is like Dubid playing moves on a chessboard. I'm telling you, and people are so fucking predictable that's why so many people, I guess the guy can hypnotize so many people. It all sort of kind of works the same. You know, it's just how dedicated somebody is to their practice, how hungry they are for success. You got any more to add from those?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people hate religion because they view it as robbing poor people of their money. But I argue that that poor person who gives $10 a month to his church, to his favorite preacher, right, he gets a tremendous sense of meaning and transcendence and a sense that he's part of something larger than himself. So people who give to scams, right, they are getting paid back, right? I got to indulge my dreams when I was, you know, buying into scams for my acting, and right, these are meeting genuine needs that people have, and the preacher who gets the widow to give him, you know, her last dollars, right? She gets a payoff from feeling righteous that she's, you know, doing the Lord's work. So that's what I got.
And even dudes like Desmond Ford himself can't see it, that part of the reason you're sharing something with somebody is at the end of the day, maybe they're gonna feel better because, you know, they maybe took something for granted, but Desmond shared that story with them, you know, so now they're taking stock of their glass is half full, you know what I mean? So Desmond didn't see the goodness of sharing. He probably saw it like I see it sometimes, dumping on, you know, you're dumping on people. I don't want to dump on them, but maybe it'll help them see how their life wasn't so bad. You know what I mean? They can take that as a positive or whatever. And so it's not always a negative. Anyway, I hope I didn't.
Yeah, I remember when I was ill, when I corresponded with Dennis Prager, he would often close his correspondence saying, "Get well, you are needed in the fight for good values." And it just gave me strength and enthusiasm to keep going. I was needed, bro, and fight for good values.
Yeah, I will tell you, I think I'm very skeptical of the Alexander technique, but on the flip side of that, I think you did yourself a favor when you learned the 12 steps or whatever. That seems like your little Swiss pocket knife, your little Swiss Army knife.
Yes.
Am I right? Or
yeah. It's how I unlock everything.
You're like, hey, wait a minute. He's just led me into step 7. I can help this motherfucker. You know what I mean? So I just feel like that's the well that never runs dry for Luke Ford, in the way that Alexander technique I don't know. I'm very dubious of that, as you can tell, so I won't say any more about that. And then I was going to say, one of your biggest strengths that you may or may not be aware of is that clean living. Are you aware of this or not aware of it? Do you understand that? Huh?
Well, I don't think that there's a great potential for harm from listening to my show, right? There's nothing dark and destructive that I'm doing in my life, and people listening to the show, they're unlikely to be put on a bad path.
I'm saying you don't smoke cigarettes,
right.
You don't drink beer. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You avoided what you might want to call those little potholes. You avoided now. Come on,
like Donald Trump. He doesn't drink. He doesn't drug.
Yeah. But he's got, before we even add in the charisma and all those intangibles, he's got 92% of the people beat already right out of the box. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And the same applies for Luke Ford. That's what I'm telling you. That clean living, you are so much ahead of the game, and I would notice that with people because people don't start out smoking a cigarette, smoking dope, drinking beer, or whatever as a crutch or whatever. It's just all funsies, and the next thing you know, something you want to do becomes something you need to do. Uh-oh. You get what I'm saying? You've avoided so much of that shit.
Yeah, it's like alcohol. It starts out as the solution, then it becomes the problem. Or smoking starts out as the solution, becomes the problem. Porn starts out as a solution, becomes the problem. Online buying and purchasing starts out as a solution to boredom, and it becomes its own problem.
Yeah, so let's see. So I guess in summary, on like picking on Luke or whatever, I wasn't necessarily picking on you. I was just kind of giving you a kind of things I saw from just kind of, I don't know you from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, but from what I've heard you talk about in the last 7 months, just this sort of kind of what I thought. And then I've wrote a note here. Okay. Cha-ching. Luke's narcissistic drive. Oh, okay. I see what I wrote down. That may be the easy thing for Luke to do is to somehow channel. If there is some sort of a narcissistic drive, you say there is, I think it might be more of just like your blogging impulse or whatever. But if there is sort of a narcissistic drive, how to channel that for fun and profit. You know what I mean? How to actually log those hours in for fun and also, get swimming pool installation gigs on the side or whatever. I don't know. Have you seen that done on YouTube to where they can
Well, with narcissism, what most people don't understand, it's a state usually rather than a permanent condition. And so you can tap into a narcissistic side of yourself to get an awful lot done. Right? There's a time and a place where some narcissistic tendencies are productive.
Right. If we can we talk about, Colin Liddell just lit up the comments getting all spicy. And he had given you a link to maybe a Twitter comment or whatever. Were you able to check that out? Where was all this?
Yeah, he just thinks that Trump is coming across as deranged and senile and a fool. And John Mearsheimer had just a devastating interview where he was just taking apart the new Trump administration, made some very strong arguments.
On the Mount Rushmore of opinions, I understand that Mr. Liddell is not of Halperin caliber or viewed in the same way as a Steve Saylor tweet, but he's up there somewhere. He's somewhere. You get what I'm saying? You do value his opinion.
I do value his opinion. Yes.
Yes. So, could you see where he was coming from? Was there a particular?
Yeah. Because this could end in tears. It is chaotic. That there are reasons to believe that Trump is really just spinning his wheels, and so I was able to see where Colin Liddell was coming from.
Okay. Mr. Liddell, based upon what I've heard him in the past say, he wouldn't have rather had Kamala in charge.
No, he wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that he's going to say praise about Donald Trump that he doesn't believe.
Right. And does he realize that part of Trump's actions is sort of like, he's a bit of a magician. There's a bit of smoke screen going on here. There's a what's the left hand doing while the right hand's doing. He understands there's that showman aspect. Does he think that Trump stepped in a particular pile of poop with regard to one thing? Was it Europe? What is it? Because I caught wind with a fellow named Alistair McLeod, who's he's one of these so-called experts in the gold market. And he seemed to allude to the fact that people in Europe are uncomfortable since Trump has taken over 3 weeks ago. I don't think they were happy before, but I think with Trump, he has a little bit more of an unpredictability and something to consider. McLeod didn't mention this, but as these revelations from USAID are coming out, you can imagine how it kind of makes us look like a dick, in all these countries where they thought we were helping, and there was some devious, subversive things going on under the guise of help. You see how that kind of has given us a black eye in the international community? You want to say something to that, Luke?
I think I'm about out of it. I think I'm pretty tired, so I'm gonna wrap up. I don't think I have anything on that.
Okay. Well, 10-4. Well, I could get into some regret on my side, but man, you've already done so much. Let me just sign off and we can wrap some other time, bro.
Sounds good, Kip. Good to catch up with you.
All right. See you, bro.
Okay, take care, bro. So I want to recommend these books, The Father Factor, The Mother Factor, and The X Factor. They are by Los Angeles psychologist Stephen Porter, and we share the same publisher, Prometheus. So here are some of his insights. Start opening up the doors in your life that you think are locked. You might think you don't have the right key, but you do. When somebody tells you that somebody or something does not matter, what they're really saying is that they can't deal with it. What you want from your mom is what you want from your life. If you want acceptance or acknowledgement, you can give that to yourself. How you eat and how you feel about yourself are one and the same. Which parent did you marry? The parent we have unresolved issues with, that's the parent we tend to marry. Emotional pain is going to transform your life. Where do you want to go? Every relationship has an expiration date. Don't judge it. If you don't get past your resentment of your dad, which 80% of you haven't, you'll die on the vine. You enter adulthood the day you forgive your dad. If things have happened to you that are unforgivable, detach from it. Detachment is a precursor for forgiveness. If you can detach from it, you will free up energy. Right? What was your attachment to your mother? And is that how you attach to people today? So due to the illnesses of my mothers and various caretakers, I had an intermittent and anxious attachment. I didn't know if I'd get a hug or a slap. So this style of attachment of uncertainty and inconsistent mothering creates in a child fear that the world is not a caring, safe, or loving place. The intermittent attachment style is the foundation for an anxious personality, an addictive personality, a person with mistrust of the world, people, and relationships. Yep, that's me. So what do I want from my parents? What do I want my father to understand about me? What would feel good? If I could unlock myself, where am I seeking their acknowledgement, approval, and love? So when various friends died, my first emotion was relief. When my father died, my first emotion was relief because I was relieved from the struggle of dealing with a difficult relationship. I no longer had to look in that mirror. Right? When you watch your parents' coffin lowered into the ground, what will you feel? If it's relief, then what are you relieved about? No longer having to confront a difficult relationship. Tears came to my eyes when I thought about the possibility of creating a life where you build instead of living a life like mine, with the knowledge that everything good currently going on is going to end horribly. So a little more optimistic than I was then. My therapist told me, grandiosity is usually an escape from reality. It is an escape from a deep-seated shame that we can't deal with except by building up this imaginary picture of ourselves. Spending your time dreaming about the great things you'll do one day is usually an excuse from doing the concrete things right now that you need to do to improve your life. You won't take that position because you feel like it's below you. You won't talk to those people because you feel like they are below you. I picture a narcissist sitting at a bar telling strangers how great they'll be one day. Remember in 1999, 1998, I started writing on Dennis Prager, knowing that I'd lose all my friends and my synagogue home. Right? Nobody's going to understand this. I'll say it anyway. Once I started thinking about writing on Dennis Prager in December of 1997, I knew it was my destiny. There are just some things I felt fated to do. But you'll have to wait for the verdict of history to understand. So out of everything I've written, I've consistently gotten the fewest kudos and the most contempt for my writing on Dennis Prager. I didn't expect it to be this one way. Thought that quickly people would see the merit of my writing on Prager. I understood I was going to lose all my friends, I was going to lose my temple, I was going to lose my community, but I thought the payoff would equalize over time. AA and 12-step programs don't usually say you can't date anyone while you're getting sober, right? That's usually from sponsors who are drunk with their delusions of power and wisdom. The big book says we don't want to be the arbiter of anyone's sex life. So do the 4-step inventory, see your patterns for how you use people, get clear, and go forth. Yes, if you've got an addiction going on, then in all likelihood you're using and abusing everyone in your life to meet your addictive needs. I always thought I failed in radio from age 15 to 21 because of my voice. But when I watch these videos of myself trying to connect to the audience from the stage, I see that my primary failure in radio, acting, stage, and life has been the inability to connect. When I emotionally connect with my material, with the audience, it is powerful, but most of the time I simply drone. I'm all in my head and disconnected from my body and my emotions. I've never been betrayed. Betrayal is a dramatic, self-centered term for other people having different priorities than what you expected. You can only feel betrayed if you hold unrealistic expectations of others. If your mate screws you over in business, it's not betrayal. It simply has different priorities than what you wanted. I feel like God called me to write on porn, but I can't get the Jews to accept my vision. Humanity in general seems stubbornly resistant to granting me my legitimate place in history. I get that frustration that Jesus and Muhammad felt. I could have stayed in a world of light and spirituality, but I chose to come down here to a fallen world to minister to fallen creatures, to show them the path to salvation, and all I get is this tsurus. That means trouble. So here are my boiled down notes for my one-man play. Mashiach, failing to sing with my class at Seventh-day Adventist School, waltzing, Klaus Meine, offended, goy, rage, preaching, women like my father, standards, family shame, debts, high definition porn, Haley Rivers, Gwen, Jill, ruthless fantasies, hack, insects, fire, girly mags, spankings, captain, apologetics, social status, Cindy, Shawl, do-over, genie, rainy, masturbation, porn, bread, crumbs to bliss, TV, January 1, 1983, learning how to kiss, goodbye rainy, chronic fatigue syndrome, UCLA, Chinese, Korean, Jews, holier than Dennis Prager, burn my mags, seek help through singles ads, Diana's E-Cup, Pam, Korean fantasy, 20 women in a year, porn, 2000, 2008, eroticized rage, full step. There are my notes for what became that spectacular one-man play, eroticized rage. And, oh my God. What the hell? What the hell do we have here? So in therapy Monday night, I'm tearing at my nails. I'm digging in with my thumbnail and just like ripping back the nail, just like digging in on the sides and keep going like this, and eventually you get a groove in there, and then the whole thing just like shreds. And I thought I'd given up this bad habit in early high school, but first time in a long time that I remember doing this. So I was talking about my father, and I knew I was doing a bad habit, but the anxiety was so high that I had to destroy something. So it's my nail. And my therapist said to me, "How are you to just take this in? Your father chose your dying mother over you. Your father chose your stepmother over you. Your father chose his religion over you. Your father chose his career over you. Your father pawned you off to friends to take care of when he didn't feel like he could take care of you. Your father doesn't want you to show up when he speaks because he's so ashamed of you. How does that feel? And I felt like some tinglings of anger, just like little tinglings. But I don't feel that much, I tell her, because he's dead to me. So my therapist says, you're... This video is from February 6, 2013. Live father is so painful for you to deal with. You've made him dead. I thought that was kind of a good point. That instead of like struggling with the relationship or working on the relationship, I've just declared him dead to me. And that's a pattern I do with a lot of people. So I released this video almost exactly 6 years prior to his death. I really don't like negotiating relationships. I guess all relationships depend on negotiation. So I guess I perhaps don't have that many relationships because I don't like to bargain and work things out and work on friendships, relationships. So I think I just dismiss people and say, they're dead to me, when it gets too confrontive or too awkward. So maybe I'm just taking the easy way out and saying my father's dead to me. Like, that's so easy. That's so easy to say. Like, my father's dead to me. It's just like...
Do you ever miss him?
Yeah, and I want to make this interactive, so thank you. I don't ever recall having a conversation with my father. Like, it feels like they were all...
Show me a typical moment between you two. How would he lecture you?
Instructions.
Be your father.
So, I know you're reading about Rousseau.
Do it to us. So we're Luke.
I know you're reading about Rousseau. So, did you know that he fathered countless children and born them up on an orphanage because he didn't want to be bothered by raising his kids? Did you know that he caused misery to everyone who got close to him?
Does he wait for an answer?
So imagine my poor father hearing about this video or watching this video. My father was sharp, right up to the end. Yeah, but I'm not. He's not. My father is not a brick wall. So if I say something,
what would you say to him?
Necessarily, I would say, yeah, I know about that.
Why is he telling you this?
Because he knows I'm reading about Rousseau, so he wants to bond with me. So he goes and reads.
So what does the kid think? He's saying
a bunch of books on Rousseau.
The kid doesn't know that he's trying to bond.
Yeah, I understand he's trying to bond with me.
You do.
So I think, yeah, it's kind of cool. And this is the relationship that I have with my father. It's not a normal...
So is there bonding?
There is some bonding, because we're both talking about Rousseau.
What are you saying?
I'm not saying a lot, because I realize I don't know as much about Rousseau as my father does. And there's definitely a feeling of bonding, and there's my mother kind of seeing this bond, and she's happy about it. She goes, your father spent several hours today reading on Rousseau just because you were reading a book on Rousseau. And so these would have been the years 1986, 87, 88. So this is when I was 20, 21, 22. I was reading a lot of books on philosophy, and my father would take note of whatever I was reading about, and then he'd go read about it so that he could instruct me. We were doing that up until age 22. And then I went away to
So was it always academic?
Yeah, it was always intellectual.
What do you wish he would have said to you? Or what kind of conversations?
I can't even imagine it because I just never had. So at this time I have over $50,000 in credit card debt, but I'm putting down $3,000 or $4,000 to take a an ongoing class in how to create a one-man play.
The experience of a conversation that was separate from him instructing me. So that's the only...
What kind of relationship would you want to have with your son? Based on what you know.
Well, once he turns an adult, so sometime between 16 and 21, I'd like it to primarily be like a friend type of relationship. Like prior to then, I understand I need to be the father.
Which would be what? Doing what? Saying what?
Providing stability and teaching right and wrong.
How would you teach him that?
I would raise him within a traditional religious community, a traditional Jewish community.
But how do you tell him what's right and what's wrong? How would you communicate that?
We'd study Torah together. We'd listen to Torah lectures.
And what if he became a Seventh-day Adventist?
And if my son became a Seventh-day Adventist or a Buddhist, it would be very painful. But I would recognize the irony and the humor in it. I hear that when people get older and have kids, they treat them more like pets. And I kind of see that.
As a positive or a negative?
Probably more negative than...
Because they love pets unconditionally.
Okay.
But that is a thing?
Like young parents, like in their 20s, they seem so consumed by parenting. And parents in their late 40s and 50s, they're not nearly as consumed by
or
parenting.
as neurotic.
Or as neurotic. Yeah. They're much more relaxed about it. And
so why not have a pet? Do you have a pet?
No, I don't have a pet.
Are you afraid of becoming a father?
I don't believe I'm afraid of becoming a father. I'd be afraid to become a father in my present financial condition.
Are you afraid of being your father as a father?
I'm afraid of being my father, period.
Are you afraid it might come out?
I know it will come out, but it's not a disabling fear. It's not the reason I haven't married and had kids. But my father had no time for his parents. I don't remember anything positive that he said about his parents, except that his father was a reader of books. But my father did not attend the funerals of his parents. I think because he lived in a different country. So I'm kind of struck by it.
And I also did not attend my father's funeral. He didn't attend his parents' funeral because he lived in a different country, lived in America. I didn't attend my own father's funeral because I lived in America, and by that time he was back in Australia.
By that similarity. And yet my sister is so seemingly close, and just so admiring of my father. And yet my brother and I are so distant, and we just don't have the first clue how to have a conversation with our father. Like, call up, talk about the weather, a little about politics, how your business is doing, how's the health for either one of us, and what books are you reading, and pretty much run out.
How do you say goodbye?
Sounds like you're doing well, or I hope your book gets better. I'll have to check out that book.
So just before my father entered hospice, I think he spent about 10 days, 2 weeks in hospice, I exchanged email. So just to say that I loved him and that certainly didn't hold any resentment against him, and that there wasn't anything that I needed him to say or to clear up. And so, yeah, I don't think I want to read it aloud. But I probably still have that email.
Thanks for the encouragement. Thanks for the tips.
How do you feel when you hang up?
Like I fulfilled an obligation.
No connection.
No connection.
Empty?
Well, there has to be some connection between I consider him dead and feeling like something about an obligation, or sad at how disconnected we are. Telling myself.
This is so painful for me to watch. And there's a question, what advice would I give this young 40? I don't know. I'm just feeling too awkward and too much in pain, and feeling like he's way too much a part of me still.
I don't want to be like that.
Is there anything you want to resolve before he dies with him? Or say to him? Or hopes he would say to you?
Well, he's told my mother that he feels like a failure, particularly as a father, particularly to us two boys. So that would be really interesting to hear from him, because he never speaks much about his failures to us boys, anyway. So I don't regard him as a failure as a father, because he's produced 3 law-abiding, productive citizens. And I think he provided the most important things that I needed: stability and right and wrong.
Do you love him?
I mean, there's got to be some love in there somewhere. Yeah.
Any last thought?
I just think it'd be an interesting conversation if he was to say, "I think I failed you as a father." Not because it's true, but just because that would be a rare admission of weakness, and maybe it'd be like the cracking of an egg, and who knows what would spill out.
So if you want to, you can write that scene. There's dialogue between you two just to see what would happen.
Yeah. Great, yeah.
I think I was kind of overwhelmed by the intensity of this class, and I took a lot of notes, but I wasn't really capable of putting it all together at that point. Okay, there were some funny moments in tonight's Mark Halperin show.
Department of Justice and the Eric Adams stuff, and just to explain kind of how a normie, like especially as a mother, reacts to this. And you know, at the end of 2021, in the deep blue state where our kids were still masked and vaccine mandates were coming down the line, the Department of Justice put out a memo that said parents speaking at Board of Ed meetings were domestic terrorists. And to see that come from our Justice Department attacking everyday Americans that were just trying to do right by our kids was so all-encompassing. Like, as a parent, you'll never know. So now when I see people, and forgive me, you might have, and Mark might have been banging your hands on the table about that memo, just as you are now about this one, and I'm sure you were. But as a person who saw that and reacted to it, it was the government coming against their own people and attacking their own people for something I think is absolutely outrageous. So now that Trump is playing that same card, but using it to go after, or not even to go after, to stop going after government officials to help clean up what an out of control, not democratic, what I would call party that were in our country for the last 4 years, to clean up the mess they made and use the same tactics that they used against us, but towards the government. It doesn't bother me because we have been living.
So there's a phenomenon of rebellious preachers' kids, but there's not a widely discussed phenomenon of rebellious rabbis' kids, right? And not in my life experience, I haven't noticed anything peculiar or distinctive about the children of rabbis. But yes, about preachers' kids, definitely.
Living in this crazy world where the government is coming after everyday citizens all the time, that now that they're just going after or trying to relieve some of the barriers that are in the way, like it doesn't resonate to freak out about it. And it actually makes me angrier that more people weren't banging their tables harder about the Department of Justice coming after parents at a Board of Ed.
Alex, as I say often on this program, you speak for tens of millions. Thank you for saying that so eloquently. How many times have you voted for Donald Trump? Oh, you're muted. Hold on. Unmute. One more time. There you go. How many times did you vote for Donald Trump?
Once. I voted for him this round.
And did you vote for Hillary Clinton in 16?
No, I voted for independent in 16.
Yeah. And 20, you voted for Biden?
No, I also voted independent.
Okay. Thank you. Mark, question for Alex, if you'd like to.
At what point did you decide I need to vote for Donald Trump and not vote independent?
There's a lot of reasons, but I would say the biggest reason was what was done to my children during the Biden years regarding masks and vaccines and coming after parents, a lot of what was going on in the schools. And I basically wanted a return to the late 90s. I think the last
who doesn't
15 years has
years.
been, and Trump to me seems like a return to the late 90s. I want inappropriate jokes. I want fun. I want
No email.
Yeah, No, but I was a big BlackBerry person. Actually, I loved BlackBerry.
Like this, apps like this.
Well, you could type notes and talk to people without looking at, like, you could look them in the eye and like tell the whole story or an interview. It's great.
Yeah.
When the BlackBerry was clearly going away, I was working at Bloomberg News, and I asked them to buy me 6 of them, so I'd have like a store, thinking I'd still be able to use them, even though the system went down. Batya, question for Alex.
I love what you said. I always say I think Donald Trump is kind of a New Deal Democrat more than he is a Republican. He just picked up that kind of normie platform on so many levels. I want to ask you something maybe a little bit extreme, but I wonder, it seems to me like, okay, and like, just bear with me for a second, but do you think that maybe there was something similar in January 6th about that? Because to me, it seemed almost like with January 6th, you had all of these politicians at a time when American cities were experiencing a lot of crime and a lot of danger, and a lot of progressive and Democratic politicians were kind of on the side of the criminals. Then after January 6th, they sort of for 4 years demanded that Americans vote on the like 2 hours of their lives that they were ever facing. Actually didn't even turn out to be very dangerous because nobody was armed, but let's put that aside. Let's just accept that they were facing danger on that day. Like demanding that the Americans who they sentenced to a constant life of like danger and crime and not caring about them put their safety first and foremost. And I wonder if this is a very similar thing to what you're pointing out, which is like these elite politicians, it's like they impose on us a standard that then they consider utterly outrageous when it comes to them. And that's very alienating to normies. What do you think about my analogy?
Yeah, I think that's right. I think I will say, like, no one made me more MAGA. I mean, I'm full-blown MAGA now. Like, I'm on the MAGA train. Like, I have a cat in my backyard on our snowman right now. Like, I am full-blown MAGA now. And what I would say is, like, nothing pushed me more towards MAGA than the average center-left person telling me that I couldn't use the same tools that the left would use because I had to be the moral person. I had to do the right thing. I had to. And so I feel like that are like, we're so over those arguments because we tried to play by the rules. We tried to do it the fair way. And all of these tools were used against us in a very aggressive way. And now that we're finally using them, we're finally finding the power to reclaim what we want to be ours. It's like, well, where's your moral standing? Where's your, why aren't you worrying about this? And I just, when you say January 6th and BLM, like the BLM summer, I had empathy for BLM. I understood people were outraged and angry. I don't think burning down buildings was the right thing to do, but I had empathy for it. And so I also didn't think posting a black box was going to change anything, so that annoyed me. But then on the January 6th stuff, it's like I had empathy for those people too. Like they were frustrated, they were angry. Like our whole country was angry for a long time. And I just, I think we needed to give grace to both sides.
Alex, one last question. What's the thing you like least about what Donald Trump's done since he took power back?
That's a good question. What I like least about, I mean, I guess the Gulf of America thing, because it's just so stupid. Like it's just it's like dumb. Like as like a MAGA head now, I'm like, yeah, it's Gulf of America, go. But also I'm like, but this is a dumb battle. Like, why are we doing this?
I agree with you, but I just gotta say, it's like, I know people like to say Donald Trump is not playing 3D chess, and I don't think he is, but he has this remarkable ability to move the pieces on the board in such a way that that the press has a tendency to checkmate itself. And you're seeing it now. So the Associated Press, there's a statement that's just been moved, was denied access, which I think is wrong, to the White House to hear the Modi press conference. Everyone is now saying that this is like a First Amendment case. It's not. It's a dumb pissing match. Again, don't agree with it, but by suddenly saying, oh my God, like the media is having its rights taken away because the Associated Press isn't allowed to be in a pool.
Fox News cut away from it. The president saying, again, as he said earlier, that both Zelensky and Putin want a deal. So we'll continue to monitor it. But Batya and Mark are making more news here, particularly when Batya said cuts than the president. All right. Welcome in, Megan Michelle. We have a predisposition towards people with alliterative names that begin with M. What with the joining of the two-way platform of Meghan McCain and Michael Moynihan with Megan Show.
God.
Don't forget, Megan Show debuts less than 1 week. Next Wednesday night, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, Megan Show. Happy Hour with Megan McCain debuts. So Megan Michelle, welcome in. Mickey Mantle, by the way, will be joining us in the next hour. Megan, tell folks who made the hat, where you are, and what's on your mind, please.
I think this is Minnetonka. Like it's an actual real leather hat, and I love it.
Very nice. Very nice. Very sharp.
Thank you so much.
And where are you calling us from today?
I'm the Arizona Outback is where I'm calling. It's nice and warm out here.
Yeah. And what's on your mind?
Okay, so Batya, I have another sort of framing that I want to throw by you since you're like the queen of narratives. Okay. as an American, I'm just speaking for myself. I think the media and the elites, they're starting to come around to Trump and they're like, wow, this guy might actually be smart. Huh, whoa. They don't understand we, the American people, chose him. We centrally casted him because we are smart, we have agency, and we're pretty brilliant if you just let us do our thing, if you leave us the hell alone. And so I wanted to elect a sort of reality person in chief because I have zero respect for these people. Mark, you're constantly like braying over the AP and these poor, victims of the Justice Department now. I have no respect for them. Zero. Negative. I'm like in the negative hundreds of respect to them.
I have respect for you by saying braying. I just like that verb, braying.
Yeah. I'm like the character in Peter Pan who becomes a donkey. Megan, I see here. I don't judge the morality or appropriateness of Trump administration activities based on how outrageous anything previous administrations did. That's not my job. My job is to judge them on the merits. So I understand tens of millions of you say, because Tony Blinken, Trump can do no wrong. I get that. But
no.
That's not my job.
I'm saying there's been a cultural shift, and by us, the people, and he was the first person to say, whoa, okay, this is a thing. And then he capitalized on that, and I'm totally fine with it. The thing is, though, like the way I view Washington, D.C. and all of these elites is they're literally people in a reality show, drunkenly, like in the background, having these crazy lives with our money, doing gross things. Like I have more respect for people actually on reality shows than anyone in Washington, D.C. Like that's not a lie or an exaggeration.
All right, what's Trump done in the last 3 weeks that you dislike the most?
Oh, Mark. What has he done in the last 3 weeks that I dislike? Oh my God. Okay, you know what I didn't like is when he had the one Larry guy from some crazy company talk about AI and mRNA vaccine technology and like we're gonna give everyone mRNA vaccines from robots or something ridiculous, And he propped someone up who was totally anti-RFK. And I was like, whoa, can we bring RFK into the conversation, dude? So when he starts to prop up other like prominent people who go against some of the MAGA values, like I'm not okay with that.
Okay. Guys, anyone want to ask Megan a question or just give her own show? Up to you.
She totally needs her own show. I worship you. I think you're the bomb. I didn't even I'm always talking about the opposite, how when they hate Trump, they're hating the American people. It never even occurred to me what you just said, which is so freaking smart. Like they're always making fun of his vocabulary. Like, do you understand that he is talking to people out of respect for them? Like he sounds normal. And I had the same thought today with Pete Hegseth. He showed up at this he was giving some conference to a whole bunch of like European journalists. You can hear their contempt for the working class in their voices and their accents. And he's there with his hokey little, American flag pocket square and has these hokey sayings, and it's like, yes, this is us. Donald Trump is
and wearing a light colored suit as compared to everybody else.
Exactly. And I want to ask you something, Megan. Megan, what do you think of Elon Musk? Because to me, he's one of these people who really is at odds with the MAGA like values at their core. Like I think Steve Bannon really nailed him dead to rights. And what do you think of him? Does he rub you the wrong way?
No, he does not. I love his autism spectrum honesty. I love it. And you know what? If there are conflicts of interests, then we'll point them out. Trust me, MAGA's going to be on it. Okay, we're not sitting here drinking Trump Musk Kool-Aid. We put them there. We campaigned with him. We wanted transparency. Do you think anyone but like a genius could figure out? And I'm talking about a business genius. I don't care what his coding skills look like. Anyone, we need someone in there who can look through miles and miles of data sets and figure out what the hell is going on, okay? And he's a king of patterns. You solve problems with tools. He'll use the same tools he used in all the other business things to look at our government and figure out all of the BS. So I'm
right,
totally
Megan, hold on, Megan, hold on. We got to do it. This is like American Idol. We got to do an audition to get you your own show. Put up the Modi tweet about Elon. Put up the Modi tweet, all right? And I want Mark and then Megan and then Batya to comment on this. No pressure, Megan. But if your analysis is better than Mark and Batya, you win a car and your own show. All right, put that up full screen because it's hard to see. Pin that or whatever the right thing to call it. Yeah, Alex gets her own show too. Don't worry.
yeah, Alex is awesome.
Hold on. All right, pin. Here we go. All right. So Modi, the head of a government, like he is like a quarter of the world's population are his constituents, and he's tweeting. Now probably had some help. It was also a delight to meet Mr. Elon Musk's family and to talk about a wide range of subjects! And then Batya, narrate what's going on in these pictures. Is it story time for the
So
Modis?
you see Elon Musk with a bunch of children that he's had with women he's not married to. It's unclear if those are the mothers in the picture or if they're, I think one is his girlfriend, but not the mother of the children. The other must be a nanny or some sort of help staff. And I'm purposely pointing this out. It's going to come back in my commentary. And they're sitting there with a delighted Modi as Elon Musk presents him with a piece of shrapnel that fell off of the rocket that he was able to re-land the Starship that we all saw recently.
All right, Megan, what do you think of these pictures? What do they make? How do they make you feel, think?
Yeah, no, that's Lil X over there in the bottom right. The woman with him in the purple is Siobhan Zillis. She worked with him at the previous AI company. And so they have twins together, and I've seen her and the twins. They're adorable with May.
Yeah.
What's happening here is my point, Mark. They're making it like a reality show. And Americans said, I want to see what you're doing. I know it's not 100% the truth, but I need at least an image. And that's exactly what this is. So here's my
Megan,
point.
I may make you our Musk correspondent. Mark, you got a view of these photos?
Not a view of the photos, but as a journalist, I would certainly like to know more specifics about what was discussed, the capacity that Elon Musk is there as a representative of our government versus the businessman who's looking for other business versus just kind of a guy who's just like, hey, this is kind of cool. I get to just chat up one of the presidents of the largest democracy on earth. It's odd.
Megan, thanks for coming. Come back soon, please.
Okay.
All right.
I just need to point out there's definitely one thing they discussed, and it's the H-1B visas, which Elon Musk said this is literally the hill I'm going to die on, and is very anathema to the MAGA movement's view of immigration.
It's not just MAGA that doesn't like it. Not just MAGA that doesn't like it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. At the risk of braying, let me tell you a couple things. 7 o'clock tonight, Bobby Kennedy makes his debut as the first. Run the table.
This is what I have to say. I just want to throw out the kind of caution to the delighted MAGA world that delighting in our misery is just going to come back, and the cycle of conflict is going to continue.
Right, but when all the institutions are controlled by the opposition party, right, how can you begrudge MAGA from having their day, right? The country party, which doesn't control almost anything in this country now, right, suddenly has its moment in the sun. So yeah, the pendulum will switch, right? At some future point, the Democrats will be on top, Republicans will have no power. But if you're internally motivated, if you recognize that you're doing the right thing, right, it need not bother you that the political opposition is rejoicing while your side is going through a tough time. Right? It's not really a big deal.
And that's I felt bad last night about asking Matt a gotcha question. You know, well, what if DC was nonpartisan? Would Doge exist? And afterwards, I felt guilty because it sounded like I was being a snarky asshole Democrat. And now my hackles are kind of up, and I'm wondering why people are delighting in the chaos.
It was fascinating. The last 3 months of the presidential election, almost no Democrat would speak up and ask a question or make a point on the two-way program.
Because they weren't watching Broken. They hate it.
Do you think that people are delighting in the misery of Democratic voters? Because I don't think that. I think that they are. Well, when I feel the feelings I have about it, they're not really delight. They're more negative. But I'm thinking about the Democratic leadership that did this accomplished this utterly outrageous thing, which is they squandered the multiracial working class. Like, they managed to make Democratic voters who don't have a college degree feel so alienated that they voted for Trump. So I feel like it's not, the negativity is not about Democratic voters. It's about the elites and the leadership who seem really out of touch with Democratic voters. What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's two-sided.
Mm-hmm.
That just judging by social media, let me just a small anecdote. When Biden made the crack about MAGA back in the October, I was so outraged that I went out to the local MAGA gathering where they had their Trump signs up, and I wanted to say to them personally, I said, I don't think you're idiots. I just want you to know that.
Right, he's referring to when Joe Biden called MAGA garbage.
As a Harris supporter, I don't think you're idiots. I just want you to know that. And when I told my friends what I had done, they lost their minds. But now when I hear people delighting in Doge going in and wrecking everything, I feel that MAGA is saying, "Oh, you libtards are really getting it now." DEI and woke is coming crashing to the ground, and I wonder whether or not it's an attack on.
Look, vengeance is normal, natural, and when appropriate, it's healthy, right? To triumph over your enemies, all right? You should rejoice and you should enjoy the moment. Shouldn't get drunk on it and say and do things that you regret, but rejoicing in victory over your enemies, that's normal, natural, and within the good bounds, it's healthy.
On progressivism, or truly an attack on the bureaucracy.
Well, look, let's be honest. The bureaucracy is overwhelmingly on the left, right? Federal government employees donate to the Democrats rather than the Republicans by a ratio of approximately 20-1.
But how come you take that?
I know
why do you feel implicated in that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess because I was so hardcore before. I was so dug in that I never gave.
Yeah, he had so much hatred for MAGA and for Republicans and for conservatives that he assumes that people on the right have the same amount of hatred for the other team that his team has. But it's probably not correct, because most people on the right, most conservatives, they don't make politics their number one thing in life, and most Republicans don't think that Democrats are evil, right? They think that they're wrong. They think that they're stupid. Now, Democrats tend to regard Republicans as evil, but Republicans do not tend to regard Democrats as evil. They think they're wrong, possibly stupid.
I never gave Trump or conservatism a thought, and now that I've come to two-way, I've broadened my perspective. I've got a subscription to the Dispatch, to the Free Press.
All right, there are a lot of funny moments on tonight's show. Let me just show one more here, where Butya uses the word cucked.
After being laughed at, Trump was so mocked and endlessly booed by all of these leaders and all of these, Davos, elites and so forth, to see the same people who laughed at him come begging for favors on their knees is so unbelievably gratifying as an American. And what I can't get over is that there's an entire political party devoted to opposing this. Like the Democrats are cucked is what they are. Like, they preferred it when these foreign leaders were laughing at us because they were making fun of Trump. And to see these Democrats out there braying and weeping on behalf of these recipients of USAID in ways that they have never brayed and wept on behalf of the American people, like, they are telling on themselves. And they are, I think, Mark, you're spot on. They are just, everything Trump does, they dig the hole deeper and deeper and deeper.
Abraham, did they say cocked in Canada, or is that just a U.S. thing?
I know it's they say it here too.
It's global.
So
Okay.
It's a North American thing, I guess.
It's as old as time itself. Thank you for joining, sir. Please come back regularly.
No.
All right. So the press conference is so boring.
Okay, that was Butya with her PhD from University of California at Berkeley in English literature and 17th century English literature. A Marxist, right? A woman of the left, but nonetheless a strong MAGA supporter. I'll talk